And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Bases with Bubba Mo, episode 94. Going to catch up on some MLB Hot Stove action and talk about one Oakland A's draft pick that we laughed at when it happened. And yes, it's come true. But in order to do so, I'll be jumping my co-host as always. You can find him on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, it's another beautiful day, rainy day in California, which is not as common as people think. So, yes, it's very, very weird out here right now for us.
Well, we're about to get snow, so it's about to get real.
It's about to get real, like cancel everything snow or just snow?
No, it doesn't look that way yet, but it keeps switching. So hopefully, because I got Red Sox winter weekend this weekend down in Foxwoods, so hopefully it doesn't kill us too much.
Oh, wow. Winter weekend. I remember hearing stories now because this I think could be your third winter weekend since we've recorded, and you've got to you've bumped shoulders with, I believe, Carabas, and you've seen Big Poppy and some other boys down there. Any plans this time?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we're probably not going to go and have a big steak dinner like last year and eat across from Tim Wakefield, and we'll probably see Big Poppy and Pedro, but it looks like a lot of the Mookie's not going to be there. Price isn't going to be there. And a couple of the other bigger guys. So there's only going to be like 20 guys there, where last year I feel like they all were there. So, we'll see. It'll be fun, though. It'll be fun.
Well, they spent a few extra weeks together this year, so they probably wanted to take a break.
Exactly. They're taking a vacation, and Mookie's getting ready to probably go elsewhere in free agency or something.
He's getting ready for a 40-40 season, so he'll get paid. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a kid that's going to get paid, but not in the Major League Baseball, most likely, unless something crazy happens. But the A's #1 draft pick, the 9th pick overall, Kyler Murray, who just won the Heisman at Oklahoma. And even before the football season started and the draft happened, we were all like, what the heck is this? He finally came out and did it. He said yesterday he's going into the NFL draft. He declared for the draft. Now, there's still some skeptics saying that he could be a two-way star. I don't see that happening. There's a couple wrinkles now that like a random new rule came out where MLB can pay their draft picks a lot more money. They want to put them on the 40-man roster. But what's your take on this one?
I'm not surprised after what he did. I mean, obviously they took a chance because he had never played football. And as you said, first he declared for the NFL draft to start the process because he had to. That was the deadline yesterday for all underclassmen in football to declare for the NFL draft. If not, they have to go back to school. This doesn't mean he's not going to be at spring training in a month. Having said that, it looks like he's going to be a first-round pick, so he's going to the NFL. If you're a first-round pick, you're going to go with the NFL. I'm pretty sure Lamar Jackson was 31st overall and got paid just over what Kyler's bonus was for being the 9th pick in the NFL, in the NBA draft, MLB draft. So the money in marketing will be better than sitting in the minor leagues on a crowded bus making no money. It is what it is. Second, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Bean. I mean, we talked about it. He always used to be smarter than everyone. They made a flipping movie after him, and now he took a shot on Kyler at 9, even though he was projected to go late first, early second, and lost the top 10 pick in the process. Yeah, they still have his rights, but let's face it. This is a different situation than Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson. He's a quarterback. He has to stay in the NFL if he's a quarterback. He can't go two-way. It just isn't possible, in my opinion, and that's probably the opinion of most people. And that's just a huge mistake by a team who needs to hit on their picks, especially when they're top 10 because of their payroll, because they don't have a stadium yet until like 2025. What a disaster for the A's. I mean, it's really a disaster, Bubba.
Yeah, and I haven't looked deeply into it because I'm still waiting for it to all actually happen. But I know they'll get a compensation pick. So I remember when I think it was the Astros drafted a starting pitcher or something. He said, "Screw you guys!" Like they didn't agree on a contract.
No. Yeah, so but they didn't. No, that was Mark. But that was Mark Apple, wasn't it? So he wasn't or whatever his name is. But he decided not to sign, which you get a pick for that. But I think because they still own his rights, they won't get a pick.
Okay, see, that's what I was wondering. So I figured all won't be lost. Like, sure, you're not going to get a top 10 draft pick, but you get those compensation in between 1 and 2 picks or whatever, and they can make something work there. But yeah, if you lose it altogether, this is a catastrophic screw up, like massively screw up. So this is going to be a fun one for Oakland to trust me, because as you've seen, there have been reporters kicked off of the SB Nation Oakland A's page because they went off on Kyler Murray when this happened. There have been all kinds of things. Jessica Kleinschmidt, who works for NBC Bay Area now, she's been having fun with it, but she's not happy about it. But she's done nothing but be professional about it.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that have voiced their opinion. And I think as this becomes more and more of a real thing, because like you said, there's still hope that he comes to spring training. There's still hope out there. Once all that hope gets taken away, which is going to happen, I'm pretty sure, it's going to get real interesting in the Bay Area because, they're already losing the Raiders now. The A's are the last team standing here pretty soon because the Warriors are about to march down the road from the Giants Stadium. And, not good, Oakland.
Yeah, and we don't know, how all the other players behind him will turn out. Obviously, the Nolan Gormans, the Matthew Liberatores, Brady Singer of the likes were projected to go that high and dropped. I mean, Nolan Gorman had an unbelievable half season. Most of them directly behind him are high school guys. So we don't know exactly how they're going to be. But if he doesn't play baseball, it's just a disaster for them. Let's speak of the system, the MLB system in terms of free agency and whatnot. Ken Rosenthal about a week and a half ago, again, we didn't record. Real life things get in the way. But he kind of wrote that the system is broken. I think we both can agree, Bubba, that it is much different than last year. Last year was very slow. There wasn't a ton of money thrown out there. You've got Patrick Corbin. You got Donaldson getting $23 million, granted only 1 year. So it's a lot of short deals, but you've got Patrick Corbin who got a big deal. A couple other guys, a couple of relievers got some deals. But this was the year that everyone thought with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper going into free agency at 26 years old, that people would break the bank and there would be more than a couple teams on these guys, and there should be. But the way the MLB is run right now with the luxury tax and everything, it seems to be different. What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely different, like we've talked about last year. But I'm glad you mentioned the part that I laugh at when people on Twitter and stuff mention it. This hasn't been a slow offseason. Last year was a slow offseason. Like, this thing went out the gates hot, and then at the like Christmas, and it's been slow since. But we still got, like, last week, DJ LeMahieu, Yasmani Grandal. What the people need to phrase it as is, like, even Yasmani Grandal, who we'll talk about, he only got 1 year, $18.5 million. That's what's wrong with the system. And that's what's with these guys is Machado and Harper and company. They want the big deal. Look at JD Martinez last year. He should have gotten paid a bunch of money. Now he's going to have another monster year in Boston and opt out, and you guys probably won't get him again because no one would just lock him down to a deal. Like, it's just the way the system is. Not saying that the Red Sox wouldn't have. They just didn't have to because that's the way the system works. And, like, when I was talking with someone the other day with this Machado-Harper deal, what it's looking more and more like, and it's what we saw a lot last year when deals finally got made, is it's like, okay, we'll give you 8 years and we'll give you X amount of cash, but it's going to be a lot of front-loaded, and there's going to be a lot of opt-out clauses from both sides of the story. I think that's where it's going to be, and it's just more fine-tuning to get the most optimal roster for both, or deal for both sides. I think that's what's taking so long, but it is broken. There's no sugarcoating it. Everywhere you turn, there's an article on it now. Eno Saris, just follow him. He pretty much anytime anyone gets signed, he has a very intelligent way of talking about how the system is broken, much more than my blabbering does. But it's a mess, and I don't see how they're going to fix it without a strike, which is terrifying because I don't know how many people listening remember the strike, but I remember the strike, and that was miserable, absolutely miserable. And this one seems a lot worse, but I was younger then, so I don't remember it all completely.
Yeah, I think a strike is happening, and that'll be another topic for another day because that's 3 years down the road. But I do think a strike will happen based off of a lot of different factors, and again, we can go over it at another time. But I think what's hurting them too is, and I know people will hammer me for this, but the big market teams, and when I say big market teams, I mean the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, and even your Giants. It's just for different reasons, they're not in on them. And I know people, and I've stuck to my guns with Yankee fans. They thought they were getting Machado the whole time. They're not going to. I'm sorry, you're not getting Machado or Harper because you developed infielders that are ready to play, and you decided to trade for Giancarlo Stanton. If you waited a year, then you have Bryce Harper, or you'll have Manny Machado. The Cubs spent too much money. They don't have anything. The Red Sox, again, they don't – need is the wrong word, but they don't have room for them. It's not happening there. And, the Dodgers and then the Giants aren't ready to win. So you're not signing them. And I think that hurts. But this we are going to go – it's going to be a strike in 3 years. And it sucks, but it is what it is. The owners have screwed themselves here, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's going to be really stupid. And the biggest thing, like you said, is that luxury tax that you don't have in other sports. And I'm not like I might be completely off the rails here, but the luxury tax, the idea behind it is A, so you don't spend too much without getting penalized. That part I understand. And B, it's to that you can't just basically have monopolies out there so the little guys can't hang around. Plus, it gives money to everybody. Problem is the little guys aren't spending to hang around. That also hurts the system.
Yeah.
So it's like you mentioned, yes, the Giants aren't doing it because they're rebuilding, but there's like 10 teams. It's funny because you look at it right now, it's like 10 to 12 teams that have been making pretty active off seasons. And then there's like 10 teams aren't going to do anything. And there's that middle ground of what's going on. And it's like everybody in reality has a gigantic amount of money and they're not spending it. Like I can't remember what it might have been, the Rays or the Royals or one of them. They're like $40 or $50 million under the salary cap, like the luxury tax. They could be spending money on all these guys, but they're not. So that's where the system is broken.
Right.
All right. And talking about a broken system, Major League Baseball. And I already know one topic we'll bring up here. They saw record revenues. Which, if people know what revenues are, this is what all the teams get. No matter how good you are or how bad you are, you get shares of revenue. It's called revenue sharing. That was part of the last collective bargaining agreement, which they will go over again in 2022. But they got $10.3 billion with a B dollars last year, Mo. $10.3 billion. Yet they can't figure out where to spend their money. I know one place we've talked about many times is the minor leagues. But, or go sign some of these major league free agents. I don't know. But what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is a lot to do with the local television deals. They made a ton of money on those. It's a lot there. And then obviously I think it's a lot of the streaming. Now, one thing they could do is maybe soften their stance on people sharing GIFs and whatnot. I know this is like such a little thing, but I mean, you want your product out there. You don't need to just license it. If regular guys like us are going to go and share your videos to people and it's going to get liked by hundreds of people, why not allow that? It grows the game. You already market your players terribly. Yes, the number one thing should be the minor leagues. Some of these guys in low A ball making like $1,300 a month. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it really is ridiculous. And they sit on buses for God knows how many hours. They got to sleep in literally like mattresses with 6 of the guys just to afford to live. It is really sad. I think the other thing is there needs to be some sort of floor with this salary cap too. You just can't go all Houston and then go down to $28 million. There needs to be a floor. If there's going to be a cap for the luxury tax, let's get some sort of floor.
I think that'll be a major factor in 2022.
It has to be. It has to be. Yeah, and I thought this was the best thing because you really had to earn your way to free agency, but taking so long to get paid and the whole Super 2 thing, that needs to be fixed as well. They need to use some money there because you know what? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Eloy Jimenez shouldn't have to wait to get up because they want to be able to hold them and, gain an extra year or two of free agency. That just shouldn't happen, and it doesn't make sense. So let's use that money there to, I don't know, give them more money. I would assume, Bubba, too, the minimum salary, because I think it's the lowest in all 4 major sports. I think
Probably.
it's
$595,000.
Yeah, I think that's the lowest. So I think that's going to go up. But yeah, I think number one is the minor leagues. It's 100% the number one thing that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, like you said, the floor is going to be a major factor. The minor leagues, I can't remember if it was Walden or one of the other solid minor league reporters. They broke it down like between every minor league team and every player, each player would get like $30-something thousand a year from this. And hello, that would be phenomenal for these guys. like that's not even asking much. Like that's really not asking a ton. And that's life-changing for these guys. They could really do a lot with that. So that would be great. I think the Super 2 thing is going to be huge with this. And it kind of goes back to the Kyler Murray thing where they came out and said Major League, like this new rule of, well, if you add him to your 40-man roster right away, you can give him all this money. But like the old thing was, if he's on the 40-man roster, you're supposed to be up in the bigs by a certain amount of time. So it kind of started contradicting all the stories we used to think. Like there's a reason why Shohei Ohtani had to sign a minor league deal instead of a real deal. But now it sounds like,
Right.
and someone even asked it, so does that mean Shohei Ohtani right now can sign a real deal? And they're like, yes, you can. Why couldn't you have done this last year? Oh, well, and then that's kind of where you got to. So, yeah, it's just showing you how many holes there are in the system right now. And that's what scares me about this strike being potentially very, very bad. So it's going to be interesting.
Do you think, and maybe last word on the strike part of it, because I know it's, we got a couple years till. Do you think that it could cost them the whole season?
The way it's going, the way the talk is, yes, but we do have a couple of years leading up. So you'd hope these people would start like kind of already seeing what's coming and working on it. That would make the most sense, because you'd have to be really freaking dumb to not see this coming a mile away. If I can see this coming a mile away, this is pretty obvious stuff. So your representatives that are getting paid all this money, this should be something that's already being talked about, I would hope, but maybe it's not. Maybe they don't want to, and they're going to pretend and hide their heads in the sand. But the way it's going, there's so many serious issues that need to be handled, like that. It sounds like the players are not going to budge on. There's some that the owners aren't going to budge on. It sounds like it's going to be ugly.
Well, our fearless leader, Rob Manfred's running the show, so I'm sure he'll figure some good things out because he's such a smart guy. All right, let's get to the signings and the trades. DJ LeMahieu, as you mentioned, signed with the Yankees, 2 for 24. It's an interesting signing. It pretty much leads to no Manny Machado, in my opinion, even if they didn't sign him, I didn't think they were getting him. Probably Gleyber Torres will move over to shortstop till Didi's back. And then they'll kind of move DJ over. They've kind of mentioned he'll play some third base, some first base. Very good defensively. Outside of cores with the bat, we'll find out. Thoughts?
Yeah, depending on who is trying to sell you on this deal is how well he hit outside of Coors. But if you just look at the bottom lines, he does not hit well outside of Coors. Right now, he's projected to hit ninth, play second base. But, you got Tulo at short. They're saying, or Gleyber at short. Now Tulo's not even in the starting lineup. They're saying DJ could be like a super utility guy because we know Andujar is not a good third baseman. I think it's a really good signing. It doesn't hurt them at all. I think it's an interesting choice for LeMahieu. I thought there was maybe a couple other landing spots you could go to, but this might also show that's just what the market is. There's a lot of second basemans. There's another one we'll talk about in a bit that just kind of how the market's gone for that similar player. It's all about the $10 to $12 million a year, $9 to $12 million a year kind of threshold right now. So I guess he struck while the iron was hot and took it and go play with the Yankees and try to win a bit instead of Colorado just getting to the dance and not getting there. So not a bad signing, just an interesting spot. Did not see the Yankees doing it.
So yeah, I this was it didn't blow me away, but I thought it was an interesting signing. I think it has to do a lot with the unknown at first base and the defensive liability by Andujar at third base. That's just a huge thing for them defensively, especially when you acquired James Paxton, you improved your pitching, you kept Happ, so you really want to help out defensively there. My thoughts, I kind of turned this, and I think I saw it on Twitter from someone. From the Rockies standpoint, they signed Daniel Murphy, an older player coming off an injury, well, semi-injury. I mean, he was hurt at the beginning of the year last year. The same deal. So they chose Daniel Murphy over DJ LeMahieu. Yep. Do you think that's a good decision?
Well, Daniel Murphy is going to play first base more than second base. That's where I think that's where that decision is for me.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it, because they still have – I think their whole idea is they wanted Hampson playing second base sooner than later. Murphy might play there a bit, but I'd say Hampson plays more games than Murphy does at second base this season. Yeah. And so that's where I think it is. They didn't have a need for a second baseman because you have Hampson, you have Brendan Rodgers, you have all these pieces coming up, and then you can say, well, they have McMahon too, so why do they need a first baseman? I get that. But I think they like Murphy's bat and Coors and playing first base more than LeMahieu playing second base.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Hampson, to be honest with you, but yeah, I mean, it's the same contract for just a different player. I mean, I think LeMahieu is going to play a little bit of first base, even though he literally has played like one game in the majors, and it hasn't been since like 2014. So.
Yeah. The roster resource is pretty interesting because, like first off, LeMahieu batting ninth, like I said, that's kind of a shocker because I think he's more of a get on base and score for you, but I guess it's like a second leadoff guy type theory. But they have Luke Voigt playing first base, batting eighth. Greg Bird is nowhere on the active roster, and it wasn't too long ago Greg Bird was the next best thing at first base. So that just goes to show you that the Yankees can be this great of a team and spend all that kind of money yet they still have no first baseman. Looking at this roster I'm at right now makes me really wonder why they did not pay for Paul Goldschmidt.
There has to be a deal somewhere.
Because this is empty.
Yeah, it just has to be a deal somewhere. I mean, they could have got Goldschmidt. That would have been such a great move for them. And then they could have made another move that would have made this okay. But I'll talk about that later.
Hey, maybe they can make a call to the Giants. We'll give you a Bumgarner and Belt, and you just give us all kinds of prospects.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Okay, well, the Yankees made another splash. They brought Zach Britton back to the bullpen. Interesting move because it was a day after, I believe, Robertson's move. But we'll get to that in a minute. But Zach Britton comes back. It was a 3-year deal. Could reach up to $53 million, guaranteed about $39 million. So he's getting $13 million a year plus incentives. Pretty big time deal for a guy that's technically not the closer right now, since they still have Big Chapman. And if anybody's seen the pictures of him lifting weights this offseason, by God. But yeah, Britton back to the Bronx. Interesting signing there.
They needed another lefty in that bullpen, and they needed the guy that could be a setup man after Betances leaves after this year. They already lost Robertson, as we'll go over next. Betances is going to be gone. We mentioned a year ago about him and Randy Levine and the arbitration issue, and so Levine's doing the same thing with a couple other guys. But yeah, they needed this guy. It depends on what you think of him. Obviously, the Achilles injury, he started off slow. He's got all the potential to be unbelievable in that stadium because he's a ground ball pitcher, a heavy ground ball pitcher. Anything that is a fly ball in right field could be out, and it's just a huge characteristic to have as a pitcher in that stadium. But I don't think it's 2016 anymore. So I think Steamer has it pretty close with a 3.19 ERA for him this year. So he's not the most dominant guy that he was in 2016. At least I don't think he's going to be that based off peripherals. But if he is that guy, man, what a steal.
Yeah, it's not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. Speaking of David Robertson, he signed with the Phillies. 2 and 23 with an option for a third. I believe it's like a $13 million option for the third year. The Phillies were looking at different guys to close. I mean, they had, a bunch of guys go last year. And then there was rumors that they could go after Kimbrel. Who knows? They still could go after Kimbrel. Thoughts on Robertson to the Phillies?
I love it. I think it's a great move for them, especially if they don't get Kimbrel or someone else. They're making big moves. He can close. He can set up. I still like Sir Anthony Dominguez. There was Neris pitched well after he got demoted and brought back up. The bullpen wasn't horrific, but it wasn't great, and this brings a nice veteran role there. So I like it a ton. I think he's got a good arm to come out of there. I like them to get a lefty would be nice. That would be helpful, like a dominating lefty. But, yeah, it's a very good move for the Phillies as they keep going. Nothing too much more than that, but pretty good.
Yep.
All right, the Chicago White Sox. They go and get a reliever. Could be the closer. They also have a guy there that might be the closer. Kelvin Herrera signs with the White Sox, 2 years, $18 million. What do you got on Herrera? He's been pretty good back in the old days.
Yeah, back in the old days, I mean, in a rough year in 2017, like mid-4s ERA, the velocity went down a little bit, with a bad Royals team. And then last year he brought it back. I mean, I think he pitched a little bit above sort of what he was, in terms of FIP and whatnot. It's very, very interesting, but his velocity is going down slowly but surely. It's for the White Sox, it's not terrible. I mean, again, it's a 2-year deal. They can go ahead and flip him if they need to. If he does pitch very well after 1 year, and they have to decide what pitchers are going to be, are going to be starters, sort of like the Braves have to do too. What pitchers are going to be in their rotation for the future, and what pitchers they really should turn into relievers, sort of a Josh Hader type, not maybe to that extent, but in terms of being 2 or 3 inning guys, because that's just that's what's happening right now in baseball, obviously. So it's not a bad signing. I'm glad, my Red Sox didn't get him. I'm sure other teams are glad. I just think it's just going downhill too quick a little bit. He'll be fine. I just think he's more probably in the middle of what he did in 2017 and what he did last year. So I would guess, and I have to get Steamer. I would bet Steamer has him around like probably 3.8 to 4. is what I would guess. Yeah, 4.07. I would think that that's what he is. And so I'm glad that, again, my Red Sox didn't go after him. I think other teams would probably say the same, where like the Yankees would rather Zach Britton, and then other teams would rather Adam Ottavino. So that's just what I think with Kelvin Herrera.
Yeah, Herrera's good, and he was affordable and cheap. And the thing we got to keep an eye on, though, is since he's cheap, the second year kind of slows it down, but he is tradable. And the other thing is they also have Alex Colomé, who they traded for, who, was a great closer 2 years ago, started off horrible, got traded to Seattle, was a setup man, and was great again. So they have two options there. So it's not necessarily just Herrera's deal. It's kind of a luxury for them for once to have two guys. But they kind of did this last year. They had Soria and a couple other arms. They dealt most of them by the break. I guess it's kind of we'll keep him, see how the guys start the season out, or he's still another year away from the rebuild type thing. So something to keep in mind. But they do have two potential closers back there, which is pretty nice for a White Sox team.
Yeah, they're doing it. And if they get Machado, they need to really kind of go all out with this. They really, really do. And that means Eloy Jimenez has to be up with the big club at the beginning of the season. And then maybe because of the unfortunate, injury to Michael Kopech, maybe you decide and you go get a veteran pitcher like Dallas Keuchel. And now you put him with Rodon and Nova and hope that one of Lopez and Giolito can figure it out. And now your rotation isn't looking too bad. I mean, look what the A's did last year with their crap rotation. And that bullpen could be, surprising with a Jace Fry and a Nate Jones being the third and fourth guys. So that's one way they could look at it if Manny Machado does sign.
Yep, definitely.
All right, let's move to the Mets. The Mets made a few moves here. We're going to start with the one that I like the most, and one that you probably like the most is Jed Lowry, 2 for 20. A veteran guy, can play sort of all over the diamond. It does limit Jeff McNeil a little bit, I believe. So that's one thing to kind of look out for in terms of fantasy. But this is a guy that is a veteran presence. And I know we're all stats-based and advanced stats-based, but he is great in the locker room is what they say. So this is a really good signing for the Mets. Thoughts?
I love it. I was bummed he didn't go to Oakland, but I knew once they traded for Profar that Lowry's days were pretty much all said and done. But it's a really interesting move because I love Lowry. He's 2 years, $20 million is a great price. I thought, if the Yankees wanted Lemahieu, they were better off getting Lowry. That kind of surprised me. These all kind of happened within certain hours of each other. But it's interesting because they have him batting second, playing third base. They got Todd Frazier over to first. Like you mentioned, it kind of gets McNeil. He's super utility. He goes to the bench. We'll mention it pretty soon, but I'll say it anyways. They traded for J.D. Davis, who was a third baseman. And that kind of makes it weird because I didn't think J.D. Davis would be an instant impact, but I thought he'd be okay. And then they go and get Jed Lowry. And then the biggest thing is if Todd Frazier's going to first, well, where the hell is Peter Alonso going to go? Like right now, he's still projected to start the year in the minors, but he really shouldn't be down there for that long. I'm not saying he should be up there immediately when Eloy and Vlad are, but we should be seeing this guy a couple months at the most. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he has a big spring. He's up there right away. And if that happens, it's going to be interesting to see how they make this roster shake out because, the lineup, you have Nemo, Lowry, Cano, Ramos, Conforto, Frazier, Rosario, Lagares. They're pretty much going to have to tell Toddy Frazier it's time to go. That's what it's going to look like. They might try to trade him or whatever they do, but they've done that thing. And I love the people on Twitter that go, a lot of these teams are making moves because they've realized like the Brewers and Astros and teams that made the playoffs last year, you need to stockpile as much talent as you can. Well, how'd that work out for the Brewers and the Astros, even the Dodgers, who just kept bringing guys on? Like one of my buddies who's a Dodgers fan, he couldn't stand the Dodgers because they had a different lineup every day. They can't get in sync. That's the only concern I have. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's so many moving parts here now that you have too many things, and it could be a problem.
Yeah, I wonder how long. I mean, obviously, you don't have to rush Peter Alonso now, per se. You got to hope the Dominic Smith trade is kind of gone, and maybe he can get a relocation somewhere else to get some, a fresh start for him because Alonso has kind of lapped him with what he did last year. Todd Frazier is not what he was with Cincinnati. I mean, with Cincinnati, he was, he's still batting like 250, and that's all he needed to do because he had the pop. He got on base a little bit, and it's just not there. So they've got a lot of moving parts, and not only that, Bubba, but Cano is not getting any younger. So how long is he actually going to play second base is a big question too. So they've got a lot of decisions to make, but the Mets are going for it as best as they possibly can. Yeah, the JD Davis one is interesting. That's just for depth because their bench has been pretty bad over the last couple of years. And then we can just do it right now if you want. They traded for Keon Broxton, and it's basically a lot of people like that spot for Broxton. I would have rather him get an everyday shot, and I know he's going to play a lot because it's him and Juan Lagares kind of fighting it out, two defensive guys, and Broxton has the potential. We saw what he did a couple years back when he had the playing time. He's a good player, very athletic, but I would rather see him go to a lower market and get a shot, sort of like Billy Hamilton to the Royals. At least Billy gets a shot to play every day. That's not the case with Keon Broxton. So I hate it for him in terms of his value fantasy-wise and, for him sort of personally for his career. It's just, if it works out and he plays well, sure, it's going to be great for him. But I would have liked to see him go to a better spot.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. There is the talent we know is there with Broxton. It just hasn't all come together yet, and maybe it never will. But you got to give him the chance. And being he's going to be 29 this year, he's still got plenty of time left. Some say that's your prime, 27 to 29, something like that. And now he's just going to get blocked by a guy like Juan Lagares. Nah, you can't be doing that. I like it if he gets to play. If not, this is an absolute shame. So I agree with everything you said. It's like it was a weird move. That's just like you said. The JD Davis move felt weird. Like for Houston, it's great because they have so many types like that, and it worked out for the Brewers. It worked for them because they have a bunch of young outfielders. They need some bullpen help. It worked out. It's just I don't know. I'm not saying what the Mets are doing is wrong by any means. I'm glad they're going for it. There's a lot. NL East is going to be a monster this year. Like the winner might have 89 wins or something because they're so talented.
Yeah,
but it's just weird watching how they're doing this. Like you said, even with Cano, part of last year he played first base when he came back from his PED suspension. So there was already rumors he might be doing that. And when if Alonso needs a day off or something, he moved Cano to first. There's just so many moving parts here. It just seems really weird.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's just go to Plawecki then.
Yeah, another great banger of a move. The Cleveland Indians, and I guess it is for them because they are a mess behind the dish right now when all they had was, I believe, Pena coming into the season. That could be totally wrong. Let me pull it up real quick. But basically, gist of it is the Mets traded
Roberto
Perez. The Mets traded Kevin Plawecki to the Cleveland Indians. So they stuck with Travis d'Arnaud to back up Wilson Ramos in New York. And now the Indians have Roberto Perez and Kevin Plawecki, that dynamic duo to catch this year, Mo.
Yeah, I was hoping when I looked up Plawecki in terms because I wasn't going to even – I opened his page, on Fangraphs. I didn't even want to look at his hitting stats. I just wanted to see how good he was, defensively. And, it seems like he's just I'm not sure about framing. Maybe he's a good framer, and they're going to split him with Roberto Perez and hope for the best after they trade Kluber and have the rest of their good rotation. It's more of sort of where this Cleveland team is going. I mean, they lost the heartbreaker in Game 7 of the World Series to the Cubs, and that may be the closest they get. I just don't see it. I know they got Lindor, they got Ramirez, but the bottom of that lineup right now is bad. They've got to hope that rotation really carries them or the prospects that they get for Kluber when they do trade him, because he is going to be traded, in my opinion, before spring training, can help them out quickly. If they can figure that out with the team, that's great. But yeah, that rotation is going to have to carry them minus their last 4-year ace. That's just going to happen.
Yeah, they're in a weird place right now, and some people are still picking them to take care of the Central. So I don't know if that's how bad the Central is, or people are just really crazy right now. I can't decide. I haven't looked deep enough into it, but I don't think it's gonna be that easy for them.
That's how bad the division is. Yes, that's why I say if Chicago somehow, and again, I know I said a few weeks ago that Jerry Reinsdorf has never given a contract to anybody. He gave it to, Jose Abreu, and that's the biggest contract that he's ever given in Chicago White Sox history. If he decides to shell out for Manny Machado, you accelerate the window now. You accelerate the window because that division is there. It's there for you. Now, sure, is it probably a year early? Probably, yes, but anything can happen in baseball. I mean, we saw what the A's did last year. The White Sox can move quickly here.
Yeah, that's true.
They can move quickly. All right, let's get to another signing. Speaking of the AL Central, let's get to the Minnesota Twins, and they signed Blake Parker, who was at one time a closer for the Angels. He's an okay reliever coming off an injury. Your thoughts on him to the Twins?
I think it's a good move for the Twins because it's a Twins team that's, not had the greatest pitching staff, period, but let alone bullpen because they lost, they traded Presley last year so they could fill that in. And Parker slots in to potentially be the closer with Trevor May. So it definitely adds some much-needed bullpen depth because outside of that, it was like Addison Reed and a bunch of youngsters and are inexperienced, and Rogers, Hildenberger, and a couple other guys. So I like it from that aspect of it. Parker did have a rocky season last year, that's for sure. When you look compared to years past, in 2017 a 2.54 ERA, 2018 3.26. He only had 14 saves last year, 8 saves the year before. It's kind of an up and down year. I believe he had some injury problems as well. Yeah. So a lot to consider with that. But when he's on, he's been really, really good. So this is a guy I like the move for the Twins. Didn't break the bank by any means, so I don't mind it at all.
No, I don't mind it. And actually, that was it. I kind of think I mixed him up with him and Middleton, but Middleton obviously had the big injury last year after he came on strong. But Blake Parker, I was a big Blake Parker guy last year, fantasy wise, and he just didn't get it done. I think he had a much better year late in the year, and maybe I could be wrong, but I'm sure Roster Resource has Ty Buttrey, who we traded in the deal for Kinsler. We, as in the Red Sox, I won't be that guy. We traded him in that deal for Ian Kinsler. He's slotted as the closer right now. So they're kind of they're not all, not all in on this guy per se, because he's only pitched like 10 innings in the majors, but they decided that Blake Parker wasn't the guy. And as you mentioned, Trevor May, we'll see if he gets to close a little bit. He had a much better year last year. But that'll be something to watch because whoever does win that closer role could be a big late round pick in a fantasy draft because they're going to be better than they were last year.
Yeah, they'll be much better. And that's kind of what I was hinting at with the Indians deal is the Twins have made moves where I can see them and making it really interesting. But, you got Buttrey starting as the closer in Anaheim right now.
Yeah. I can't believe we traded him, but whatever.
Grandal.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, that's me. My bad. All right. The Milwaukee Brewers, they went and made a splash. They made things even better this year. Has Manny Grandal 1 year, about 18 and I think it's $18.75 million. It's interesting because there was rumored to be a 3 to 4 year deal from the Mets. He did not like. This is just slightly more than the qualifying or the not qualifying offer, whatever they call that stupid offer.
Qualifying offer. Yeah,
it is qualifying. Yeah, qualifying offer from the Dodgers. So he didn't really break the bank like he thought he would, like he should have. This is an example of the problems in baseball. What's your thoughts on the actual signing to the Brewers?
Yeah, you nailed it. Good get for the Brewers on a 1 year deal. It's a mid-market team that can't really give a huge deal. They traded for Yelich. They did sign Kane to a big deal, but they're not giving out huge deals every year. And so this is just a good get for them. He's better than Eric Kratz. He's better than whoever else they had there. And he, like you said, he was supposedly offered 4 for $60 from the Mets, where he was sort of projected to get 4 and $80. 4 and 85-ish. And he mentioned today he didn't want to take a below market deal because of the young catchers coming up. And he thought to himself, hey, if I take 4 for $60, that's going to hurt catchers down the road in this market. And this is what players are thinking about. This is a bigger picture deal of what we talked about earlier in terms of that baseball is broken because Yasmani Grandal, I believe, I'm pretty sure. Well, number one, put away what he did in the playoffs defensively because he's a good defensive catcher. I don't know what happened there in the playoffs where he just lost himself a little bit, but he is coming off a good season for him. 20 plus homers again. He averaged 241. He gets on base, walks about 14% clip. Even the K percentage came down a little bit from what it was in 2017. So he's a good player. Hard hit was up. I'm surprised he didn't get something here from anyone. Obviously, the Mets offered him that deal. They went Wilson Ramos, which is not a bad backup move. He can come back next year as a 31-year-old and maybe get a multi-year deal, and he's going to bet on himself again. And this is a guy that, and we'll talk about it later, that I may be targeting again in fantasy, especially in OBP leagues. In average leagues, you're going to take a little bit of hit on him, but in OBP leagues, he's going to be up there because he's going to get you 22 to 27 homers, and especially now he's moving to that park in that lineup. It's a good signing for him and the Brewers.
Yeah, it's a great signing for the Brewers. Good for him. Good vaults padded for your next free agent run. I like it a lot. I thought maybe the Angels would go for Grandal. They definitely need a better backstop too. So I like it a lot for the Brew Crew. Very, very solid move.
All right, a couple more here, Bubba. We're almost to the good one. And let's get to Brian Dozier first. 31 years old. I mean, he was.
Stop that.
I know. But we'll get there, folks. I know everyone's crazy for our last signing, but listen, 2 years ago, 42 homers. Last year, 34 homers. He just was a great player for the Twins. And last year, I think he was hurt a little bit. He kind of lost. He only had 21 homers, and then he was traded to the Dodgers. And he only got a 1-year, $9 million deal. He's 31 years old. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, after he got that the Twins just didn't go back and get him instead of Scope. But this is a decent get for the Nationals, especially if they still want to compete in that division and they're still spending money and not waiting for Bryce Harper to make that decision.
This is a great move for the Nationals. I tweeted it out the other day, looking at their lineup for opening day without Bryce Harper. Still very, very dangerous. Eaton, Turner, Rendon, Soto, Zimmerman, Dozier batting sixth, then Gomes and Victor Olves. Just adding Dozier to that lineup is tremendous. And, yeah, there's a lot of injury risk in that lineup already. But, Juan Soto batting cleanup, taking Bryce's spot, I'm cool with that. Dozier is a very good get for them because other than that, right now they had Wilmer Defoe or Howie Kendrick playing second base. So it's tremendous. The fact he's only getting $9 million is criminal. He had a knee injury last year, like a pretty bad one that we didn't really know was as bad as it was, and that's what kind of screwed him. He should have been paid prior to this, but the system it's the way the system is. And it goes to show you that guys like Jed Lowry and Daniel Murphy and DJ LeMahieu just got more money than Brian Dozier. Where I see Brian Dozier potentially being the best power bat out of the group. Maybe not the best overall player, but really good get for the Nationals. I like it quite a bit. I thought maybe the Dodgers would bring him back because they have a hole at second base, and $9 million isn't much. But maybe they're still holding strong on Bryce Harper, even though the Yankees and Nationals are pretty much out now.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they're not gonna do it. Dozier is a good get for them. I mean, I wish kind of Pedroia would retire so that the Red Sox could have went in on him because obviously Nunez wouldn't get the job done. I love Brock Holt to death. But he's not an everyday player. He's a good utility guy. So I kind of wish that had happened. But like I said, I think the ideal spot would have been Minnesota. I don't know why they wouldn't just bring him back for 1 year, $9 million, but they signed Scope early in the process. So maybe they actually thought that he would get more than he got. And maybe right now they're kicking themselves saying, man, we could have had that guy back. He's a good clubhouse guy. And, obviously he's played in Minnesota. He's performed very well here. So that might be happening right now up in the Great Lakes.
It could be that, but they could also want Scope because he's a few years younger, and that's just something that plays into all this kind of money game right now. This age is a big factor for some of these teams.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, to the big signing that you wanted to talk about here, the Giants bring back their number 3 starter. They bring back the lefty. They bring back the Dutch oven himself, Derek Collins. And it's scary that I'm actually excited about this move. It was very, very team-friendly contract. The way I look at it, it was 1 year, $7 million with a a possible option for 2020 as well, with the base of $6.5 million. There are a bunch of options and incentives in here, but as a whole, this he could get up to $15 million over 2 years. To me, in the world that we live in these days, I know Holland can be volatile. He had a phenomenal year last year. He's 32 years old, but $15 million for a number 3 starter for 2 seasons is really cheap for me. And I'm not even just saying that as a Giants fan. That, to me, I was literally talking to someone Sunday afternoon about, I really wish they'd bring Derek Holland back, but I figured he'd make too much money the way the markets are going because of what he did last season. Next thing you know, he comes back. I am over the moon by this because that just knocks Chris Stratton out of the start. Goes Bumgarner, Samardzija, Holland, Derek Rodriguez, and Andrew Suarez. I'm excited. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm ready for that Saturday, March 30th game between at San Diego between Brian Mitchell and Derek Holland. Let me tell you, what a barn burner that's going to be when I stay up late and watch that. I was surprised when I looked at this that he led the Giants in innings last year. I mean, obviously Bumgarner got hurt. Samardzija was hurt. Derek Rodriguez came up late. So he, at 171 innings, he led the team. And he was pretty good. I mean, I was extremely surprised when I saw that he was, 3.57 ERA, 3.87 FIP. Walks were up a little bit from where he was. I mean, that was always his thing, where really wasn't walking a ton of guys. Ground ball rate about the same as it was the 2 years prior to that, and the strikeouts were up. So it's there's something there. I have to look. I forgot. I didn't have it in my notes for some reason. But yeah, no, much better in the second half. 409 first half, 283 in the second half. So this is a guy that, for, like you said, for $15 million over 2 years, possibly, it's not bad, especially where you guys are still trying to compete with that team. You can't really spend a ton of money on players, but you still have to put out a decent product, especially with the new general manager and whatnot. It's not horrible. It really isn't. I want to make fun of you, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, it's hard to make fun of. It really is. And that's the thing. It's hard to make fun of. And Ryan Bloomfield from Baseball HQ, he tweeted it out on one of his Bloom boards this offseason. Derek Holland increased his slider usage 8.6% this past year, and he increased his whip percentage on that pitch 17%. That was a major factor in his coming through.
Yeah, I think what did I see there? Yeah, I mean, his slider percentage, well, yeah, like you said, it was 11.8 in 2017 with the White Sox and 20% last year. So it was a very good pitch. Yeah, I mean, they didn't rate it like unbelievable. Well, actually, is this slider? I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, actually, it was much better. I didn't even look at the right thing. But anyways, not awful.
Yeah, not awful at all.
All right, let's get to the fantasy section. We've been trying to do this for weeks. Obviously, things got in the way, but it's January 15th. We're probably, Bubba, would you say, from the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Drafts, probably less than a month away, I would guess?
Yes, I believe. I'll give a shameless plug for Mason, and he's not even telling me to do this, but I know it's coming out here in the next couple of weeks. But if you've already registered because you're in the industry, and Mo and I will be returning to the leagues this year, your league information will be sent out around February 1st, starting week. You'll have all that info. I know this year it's going to be like half of it's going to be the roto format, half's going to be head-to-head. Not sure how he's going to split that up. I know when you filled your application out, you put your preference on what you wanted. So we'll see how that goes. But the plug I'm going to give is he's going to start opening it up. Like for those that know the Scott, there's going to be satellite leagues for non-industry people to play in this year to have a chance to win spots into the Invitational the following year. So keep on the lookout for that. Mason's going to have some links and stuff to help fill it out and to have people tweet it out and all kinds of stuff. So we'll help tweet it out when it's all ready to go. But keep an eye out on that because a lot of people are asking, how do you get in if you're not in the industry? This is how you can get in. You earn a spot to get in, and then you can play all of us, and you can beat me because everybody else beats me the way my teams get hurt. So just don't draft who I draft to be fine. But, yes, the Invitational coming up in a few weeks. We'll probably be drafting within a month or so, like you said.
Yeah, I had a rough year as well. And this year it's run. Last year was run on Fantrax. This year it's run on NFBC. So their format is two catchers, which is going to be very interesting. And we're going to start off this week, and we'll go position by position. We're going to start off with catchers. Obviously, this won't be as long as most positions because the catcher position is straight garbage. It is. So we're going to start off with a few questions. First off, Bubba, and I'll let you go first on this one. Will you draft Gary Sanchez and JT Realmuto at their current ADP, or will you wait for somebody else? Or could it be different depending on the league?
Depending on the league, being the two-catcher format of the NFBC, I would consider Gary Sanchez. But that consideration would be just the way things fell on the draft. It is highly unlikely I will have either one. I did some catchers articles and research last week, and Gary Sanchez and Salvador Perez are scary the same. And they're like 50 picks. I didn't realize how close they were until I really looked at their numbers. And sure, Sanchez can probably out-home by 10 or more if he has a perfect year. I'm talking a perfect year. It's done year in and year out. It's pretty consistent. So all that being said, it'll be very unlikely I'll have either one of these two guys. What about you?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. But the funny thing is, and we talk about it all the time, and people are already tweeting out, all the folks on my timeline that I follow in the industry, it seems like a lot of people are staying away from Gary Sanchez. So he could, right now, I believe if I get to I think it's like 58. Yeah, it's like 58 or something like that. I got it right here. Yeah, so Realmuto's 57.25 and Sanchez is 57.52 with their max pick being 74 and 78. So they continue to drop like that. Who knows? I think the big thing with the both of them is, number one, Realmuto did not steal last year compared to what he did the year before. And that was a huge thing with him to get. If you get 10 steals from Realmuto, I mean, it's a big thing to get 10 steals from the catching position. Number two, with Gary Sanchez, he somehow was worse in the second half than he was in the first half. And obviously he's one of the worst defensive catchers in the league. Like, how long will he even stick at catcher? It's just, that's like a huge thing. And that he can't go to DH on the Yankees because they have Giancarlo Stanton. Not to mention he's coming off offseason shoulder surgery. I know it's not his throwing arm, but offseason shoulder surgery. I'm probably not going to touch him in any leagues unless he drops hard. And to be honest, I'm surprised the Yankees didn't ship him with prospects to the Marlins from Realmuto, because it could have helped their window for the next 2 years. And Realmuto is only going to make between 15 and 20 million over the next 2 years. And this is my last point with Gary Sanchez. He could be Jesus Montero with the prospect type, except he actually had 7 good months in the league. I mean, that's really, maybe that's an extreme take, but that's where we're going to right now with Gary Sanchez, at least from what he did last year.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it at all. He's a super talented guy. If he falls just right, that's all fine and dandy. But I just, 15-team league, pick 50 to 60. You're talking round 5 is probably not going to do it.
Yeah, and I like the point about, Salvador Perez and Realmuto. All right, let's get to the next one. In terms of who you think maybe is ranked too high and too low among the NFBC ADP among catchers. And again, I think it's tough to rank a lot of guys too low because it just really doesn't go deep here.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to NFBC, as my thing is reloading because my computer, I'm still transitioning computers at the moment. But let me get the catchers back up real quick.
Yeah, I'll start real quick. The one guy I think is the most talked about right now, and I think we tweeted out his home run in either Dominican or Venezuela, is Williams Astudillo. I mean, he's 10th among catchers right now at 236. Some people in the NFBC took him at 115. That must be a two-catcher. There must be a two-catcher. Well, they're all two-catcher leagues. So that is high, the 115. That is way dependent on whether he actually gets at bats, and that's the troubling thing for me. So that's a guy that I probably won't have any shares of.
Yeah, his helium's going high. I love Astudillo. Problem with Astudillo is he's not even got a spot in the lineup yet. He's in the minor leagues to start out the year. So that's the scary part with him. A couple of guys that I think are too high, Yan Gomes. When it comes to the Washington backstops, if I'm going to take anybody, I'll take Suzuki about 150 rounds later. If I'm going to take a Washington catcher. So Gomes is going too high for me. Other than that, though, I don't see a ton. You look at the draft champions data since the beginning of this all starting, there's still guys going super late here that you can take a gamble on. Like the top 8 or so to me is very, very strong. And if you're in a 2-catcher league, I try to have one of the top 8. But then after that, you're playing a game of wait and see, or try to get like a Danny Jansen, a Castillo, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the one guy that's late now that he owns that spot, and it's not in a great lineup per se, but from what he did last year is Omar Narvaez for Seattle. I think that's a late guy at 342 that I could take a shot on. I think Elias Diaz too is another guy. I know he didn't have a ton of power, in the minors, but he's really improved that launch angle and the hard hit rate. So he's behind Cervelli. He's behind Cervelli. But most of these catchers are splitting time anyway. Other than Real Muto, and if Gary Sanchez figures it out, and Grandal and Molina and Contreras and Ramos, those top guys, and that's the reason why they're top, because they're going to play every day. It's not going to happen with most of these catchers. So like you said, unless you get those, that's why the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational drafts will be very interesting, because if you don't get one of those 8 guys or so, you might as well just punt on catcher. I mean, really.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Pretty ugly. All right, let's get to I said who you target after 200. We just mentioned I think one guy, Bubba, that I'm going to really target again, like I did last year, even though he got suspended for PEDs, is Wellington Castillo. And again, he's only going to have about 350 to 400 plate appearances. That's what he's sort of averaged over the couple of years. But he had all last season off with the PED suspension. What he'll come off of after that, I don't know. But is a 15th ranked catcher and 266 overall. That's probably someone I'll go after for the power. That's just one of the guys I'll go after.
Yeah, no, I wrote an article about later sleepers, or whatever you want to call them. And the 2 guys that I targeted were Wellington Castillo and Omar Narvaez. So you mentioned 2 of them that I like quite a bit. And there's a lot to like there. Beef, I think people are forgetting about Beef because of the PED suspension. So he's a guy you can look at. In draft champions leagues, Danny Jansen's going about 270. Now that Russell Martin's out of the way, that's a very solid move there. That kid can just crush baseballs. So he's another guy I don't mind getting a little later. I think that helium's going to keep pushing up, though, so might not be as fortunate, but still not a bad option. And then other than that, you can roll the dice, like I said, on a Kurt Suzuki if you just want a nice batting average, not worrying about everyday at-bats. Maybe you play for the bounce back of an Austin Barnes. He's getting at 384. Or you look at a Chris Iannetta and Coors at 430-ish. So just a couple of guys way back there.
Yeah, and then depending on what you think of Sean Murphy, I mean, there's a possibility he could be up mid-season that you could kind of stash if you have that room. Chance Sisco, former top prospect for the Orioles. I believe he's going to be their everyday catcher. I don't see why they wouldn't at 23 years old, and the pedigree that he did have as one of their top prospects. He'll probably be, as the lefty, he'll probably be sitting against lefties and platooning with, looks like Austin Wins, whoever the hell that is, but he was a former top prospect for them. So that guy could, especially in Camden Yards, you never know with someone like that. He's really, really late. Other than that, my last question to you, Bubba, is what are our thoughts on Francisco Mejia? I mean, 11th overall in terms of these rankings, 240 ADP in FBC. Does he even stick at catcher? It's a really tough decision.
It's very tough because Austin Hedges is there. They've tried to trade him to get Mejia back there full time. I love Mejia. I think he's a great play. I just don't know if I could pick him at that point in time. Like when you got guys even like Jorge Alfaro right behind him, or again Tucker Barnhart, Danny Jansen, Beef Wellington, all those kind of guys that I know I'm going to get out of them. It's there. It's kind of like the old theory. I've talked to some guys that if you want to win your league, you don't draft Francisco Mejia. If you want to win the overall, you gamble on guys like Francisco Mejia. That's the difference, because his talent level is so boomer bust, like a GPP play in DFS. But if he hits his, upper percentile of production, he's going to win you leagues. It's just, do you want to draft him at that point in time? I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. It's really tough for me to actually. And I know it's only a cup of coffee last year, so I'm not even looking at the 30% K percentage. I'm not looking at any of that. Obviously, he's got a good bat. We know that. Is the power there? I know he's been talked about for days when they did trade him in terms of people who it's either you're in on him or you're out on him. There's no middle point. It really is, that's what it is for him. And can he stay a catcher is always the two questions for this guy. Obviously, they traded Brad Hand for him. They believe in him. AJ Preller believes in him. He's going to get at bats, whether Hedges is there or not. They will find a way to get him in that lineup.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, that'll wrap us up for the catchers. We'll hit up first base next week. Hopefully there's some more acquisitions. We got some prospect talks we've been wanting to get to as well. So got a lot coming up here in the next few weeks as we get closer and closer. Pitchers and catchers report like in less than a month or about a month. It's usually around Valentine's Day. So it's coming up really, really soon. But you can find Mo on Twitter at Boston_Mo. The podcast is at Around Bases Pod, and I am at BDintric. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. We'd much, much appreciate it. This was Around the Base with Bubba Mo, episode 94. Catch you guys later.
See you.